Every breath carries a story. For some, it is the story of life, of energy filling the lungs and spirit, of freedom moving through the body. For others, every inhale carries chains wrapped around by smoke or vapor, a ritual that feels comforting but is slowly carving away focus, health, and destiny. Nicotine does not simply sit in the body as a harmless substance. It enters like a thief in the night, binding itself to the very receptors in the brain that were created to guide you toward balance, focus, and reward. With each puff, each inhale, it manipulates the sacred chemistry of dopamine, the molecule of motivation and drive, twisting it into chains of dependency. What was once given to you as a divine gift for pursuing purpose and fulfillment becomes hijacked by a chemical that convinces your mind you cannot move forward without it. This is why smoking and vaping are not just casual choices but deep spiritual battles, because the brain that was designed to worship, to create, to endure is being tricked into serving a false master. Every time nicotine enters, dopamine surges unnaturally and then crashes into emptiness, leaving you desperate for more. The cycle repeats, enslaving the will, making the body cry out for the very thing that destroys it. But the truth is that your brain is not weak, it is powerful, it is plastic, it can be renewed. The same dopamine receptors that have been abused can be cleansed and recalibrated. The same circuitry that has been enslaved can be redeemed. Cravings are not signs that you are broken, they are signals that your brain is still alive, still fighting, still capable of change. When you feel the ache, when you feel the burning desire to reach for a cigarette or a vape, that is the moment you must see not as failure, but as the very battlefield where victory is possible. For every surge of desire is an opportunity to retrain the mind, to take back authority from a chemical that never deserved it. Imagine your brain as a temple, crafted with precision, wired with resilience, filled with potential to focus, to love, to worship, to overcome. Nicotine has set up altars of craving inside this temple, demanding sacrifice after sacrifice, but you were never designed to bow to this. You were designed to live in freedom, to use dopamine as fuel for building, not for burning away your strength. Science tells us that dopamine can be restored, that receptors can be reset, that pathways can be redirected, but it requires a choice, a relentless choice, to step into discipline and reclaim the circuits of the mind. You do not fight this battle alone, for the body itself is your ally, created to restore balance when given the chance. Every moment of resistance is a prayer in action. Every refusal to bow to craving is worship. Every choice to say no is a declaration that the brain will serve its true purpose again. The urge will rise like a storm, but storms pass, and with each passing storm, the roots of freedom grow deeper. The wiring of the mind grows stronger. The throne of dopamine is returned to its rightful ruler. Triggers are not random. They are carefully woven patterns that nicotine has stitched into the fabric of your daily life. The sight of a lighter, the smell of smoke, the break at work, the drive in the car, even the very rhythm of your breathing when stress rises, these become signals that awaken the craving, as if invisible hands are pulling you back toward the substance. This is how addiction hides in plain sight, disguising itself as routine, embedding itself into the sacred hours of your day until you no longer recognize where your choice ends and the chain begins. But to break free, you must see with spiritual eyes and scientific clarity that these triggers are not gods, they are illusions. They are shadows that only hold power when you give them authority. Each time you respond to a cue by inhaling nicotine, you reinforce a loop in the brain. It is written like scripture into your neural circuits, trigger, craving, reward. The more it repeats, the deeper it carves into the mind. Yet, the same law that binds you is the law that can set you free, for the brain does not only record bondage, it can record freedom. If you disrupt the cycle, if you answer the trigger with a new response, you begin to carve a new pathway, a holy path of release and strength. When the cue comes, the morning coffee that whispers for a cigarette, the anxiety that begs for a vape, you can train yourself to replace that act with a ritual of power. Breath that fills the lungs with life rather than poison. Movement that stirs the body into strength rather than weakness. Prayer or meditation that lifts the mind above impulse into clarity. Each time you replace the old with the new, you are chiseling away the false altar and building a new one, a temple where discipline and freedom reside. Do not despise the triggers, for they are teachers. They reveal the battleground. They expose the hidden agreements you have made with a substance that does not love you. Every time the trigger appears, it is as if a door opens, giving you the chance to choose who you will serve, bondage or freedom, death or life, weakness or power. What once enslaved you can become the very signpost of your deliverance, because the more you face it, the more you resist, the more your brain rewires, until one day the trigger itself loses its voice. The truth is, these habits are not destiny. They are simply agreements written in the flesh of the brain, and agreements can be broken. When you decide to break them, when you no longer answer the call of the trigger with submission, but with defiance, the brain begins to shift. Neuroplasticity bends in your favor, dopamine reorients toward true reward, and the cues that once mocked you become powerless echoes of a life you no longer live. Neuroplasticity is the divine design of the brain to change, to renew, to reshape itself in response to what you repeatedly do. The same force that allowed nicotine to carve its hooks deep into your neural pathways is the same force that can be harnessed to pull them out. Every craving, every urge, every temptation is not just a moment of weakness. It is an opening, an invitation to redirect the energy of your brain toward freedom. When the desire rises, that is the moment when neurons fire, when circuits light up, and you have a holy opportunity to rewire them by choosing a different path. Cravings are like rivers that have been flowing in the same direction for years. Nicotine carved those rivers into your brain so deeply that the waters seem impossible to divert. But neuroplasticity is the power to dig new channels, to redirect the flow, to let the old river dry up and a new one emerge. Each time you resist the urge, each time you refuse to bow to the idol of nicotine, you are etching a new course, a new pattern of strength, discipline, and control. This is not immediate, for rivers are not built in a day, but every choice is a shovel in your hand, reshaping the terrain of your mind. Do not mistake the intensity of cravings as proof of defeat. See them as proof of possibility. The more your brain cries out, the more malleable those circuits are in that moment. Just as muscles grow under resistance, your neural strength grows when you press against the weight of temptation. What once was slavery can become the very forge of your resilience if you remain steadfast in that furnace of choice. The chemistry of dopamine, the very molecule nicotine abused, can be restored to its rightful purpose, not to enslave you to a puff of smoke, but to drive you toward higher goals, greater clarity, and lasting freedom. The spiritual truth aligns with the scientific truth. You are not fixed, you are not doomed, you are not trapped in a static brain. You were created with the ability to renew your mind, to be transformed by the choices you make, to break free from the cycles that seek to destroy you. Each decision in the face of craving is not small, it is sacred, it is rewriting your identity at the level of your neurons. Where once there was weakness, new circuits of strength can grow. Where once there was compulsion, new networks of self-control can form. And over time, the grip of nicotine weakens, the old rivers dry up, and your brain becomes a living testament that freedom is not only possible, it is inevitable for the one who refuses to quit. Stress is one of the greatest deceivers in the battle against smoking and vaping, because it convinces you that nicotine is the answer, when in truth it is the poison. In moments of pressure, when the heart beats faster, when anxiety rises, when the world feels heavy on your shoulders, the craving whispers, take a puff, inhale, release, as if relief could be found in smoke. And yes, for a fleeting moment, the brain feels a false calm because nicotine hijacks the circuits of stress and numbs them temporarily. But the deception is revealed quickly because when the chemical fades, the stress is multiplied, the anxiety deepened, the body weakened until the cycle repeats again and again. What seemed like peace is in reality a prison. The science is clear. Nicotine binds to receptors that influence cortisol, adrenaline, and dopamine, creating a storm within your nervous system. It pretends to soothe, but it is fueling the very fire you seek to escape. Stress is not relieved by smoke. It is intensified, hidden under a thin veil, only to return stronger. This is why the battle to quit must address not only the cravings, but also the lies written into your biology by years of repetition. When stress rises, the temptation will always be loudest because your brain remembers the false relief. But that moment, that very intensity, is the sacred place where victory is forged. True relief from stress is not found in inhaling chemicals that poison the lungs and enslave the mind. It is found in aligning your body and brain with practices that restore balance rather than destroy it. Deep breathing that floods the body with oxygen, prayer that lifts the spirit above fear, movement that burns away tension and strengthens the frame. These are the holy alternatives that not only calm the storm, but retrain the circuits of the brain to seek true peace. Each time you choose these instead of nicotine, you are breaking the false covenant that stress and smoke made together in your mind. Understand this: stress is not your enemy. It is a signal, a teacher, showing you where your brain and body are calling for balance. When you meet that signal with truth instead of lies, you transform stress into strength. Every wave of anxiety becomes a test of your authority. Every surge of pressure becomes an altar where you can either bow to the false god of nicotine or rise into the freedom you were created for. The more you choose rightly in those moments, the more your brain rewires itself to endure, to adapt, to find peace without poison. Over time, the very triggers that once enslaved you will become reminders of your strength, because you will know that no storm is greater than the calm you carry within. Identity is the deepest root of all lasting change, for what you believe about yourself shapes every action you take. If you see yourself as a smoker, even if you try to quit, the shadow of that identity will pull you back. If you see yourself as someone weak, bound, addicted, then every craving will feel like proof that you are right. But when you begin to shift the narrative, when you begin to declare with both mind and spirit, I am not a smoker, I am not a slave, I am a free and disciplined being, you activate the most powerful force in the brain and the sole alignment of identity with action. The brain is wired to protect identity. Whatever you believe about yourself, your nervous system will fight to make it true. This is why those who still cling to the title of smoker find it so hard to leave nicotine behind, because the brain interprets quitting as betrayal of the self. But when you declare a new identity, when you see yourself not as someone trying to quit, but as someone who has already been transformed, the brain begins to align its circuits to match that truth. Neuroplasticity responds to the story you tell about yourself. Speak weakness, and weakness grows. Speak freedom, and freedom begins to manifest in your neural pathways. This is not only psychological, it is deeply spiritual. For as a man believes in his heart, so is he. If you believe you are bound, you remain bound. But if you believe you are called to freedom, your actions rise to meet that calling. The cravings that once seemed insurmountable become mere echoes when you no longer see them as part of who you are. The pack of cigarettes, the vape pen, they lose their hold when they are no longer attached to your identity. They become foreign, unnatural beneath you because your true self has risen and above them. Every time you resist nicotine, you are not just saying no to a substance, you are saying yes to a new self. You are writing a testimony with your choices, carving into your brain and spirit the story of someone who is strong, someone who is free, someone who is no longer defined by addiction but by victory. And when you repeat this truth, day after day, choice after choice, the bond between identity and freedom grows unshakable. Do not merely try to stop smoking. Become the kind of person who no longer smokes. Do not merely try to resist cravings. Become the kind of person who sees them as powerless. The more you anchor yourself in this identity, the more your brain rewires, the more your spirit strengthens. Until one day you look back and realize you have not just quit a habit, you have become someone entirely new. Discipline is the bridge between desire and destiny, the force that transforms fleeting intentions into permanent change. Without it, the brain remains at the mercy of cravings, tossed around by every surge of dopamine, enslaved by the rhythms of habit. But with discipline, the very chemistry of the mind is harnessed, ordered, and brought under control. Discipline is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision to act rightly in the midst of struggle, again and again, until the struggle bends to your will. Every time you choose to resist nicotine, every time you override the pull of smoke or vapor, you are exercising the divine gift of self-mastery, carving into your neural circuits a testimony of resilience. Science reveals that the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain designed for decision-making and self-control, grows stronger with use, just like a muscle. Each act of discipline strengthens it, making the next decision easier, the next battle less consuming. In the beginning, it may feel like a war at every turn, but as the days pass and the choices accumulate, the war shifts in your favor. The cravings lose their authority, the pathways of addiction weaken, and the circuits of freedom grow dominant. What once felt impossible becomes natural, automatic. A new way of being. But discipline is not merely neurological, it is spiritual. To discipline the body is to honor the Creator, to bring your flesh under obedience to your higher calling. Every time you say no to nicotine, you are saying yes to life, to clarity, to purity. You are breaking allegiance with a destructive idol and pledging allegiance to purpose, to destiny, to the breath of life itself. Discipline is worship in action, a declaration that your body and mind are temples not to be polluted by poison, but to be preserved for power. Discipline also transforms suffering into strength. The discomfort of cravings, the tension of withdrawal, the agitation of change, these are not curses but opportunities. They are the fire that forges steel within you. The more you embrace discipline, the more you realize that pain is not your enemy, but your ally, shaping you into someone unshakable. Nicotine enslaved you through comfort, but discipline frees you through struggle. And that freedom is not fragile. It is forged in the very furnace that once sought to destroy you. When discipline is practiced daily, it no longer feels like punishment but liberation. It becomes the rhythm of a new life, a pattern of victory etched deep into your mind and soul. You no longer ask, "Can I quit?" Because the answer has already been lived out in the choices you've made. You no longer waver between two identities, because discipline has made one truth undeniable: you are free, you are strong, you are transformed.